On today's Locked On Jayhawks, Kansas bounces back. Zeke Mayo win off, but how much was really different for KU?
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening? Derek Johnson here. This is Locked On Jayhawks. Thanks for making it your first listen every day. We are free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and you can also find it on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe to the show. On today's edition of LOJ, we're breaking down, recapping Kansas 75, NC State 60. Zeke Mayo goes off. I think Willa can tell us about who the primary options should be on the KU offense, but still at the end of the day, good bounce back win. We'll discuss that, but also how much really was different from some of the things that have been hurting them, because I don't know if it was as much as you might have thought. We'll also get to our game awards from the action and what is next with a KU women's basketball update. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase with Game Time. Kansas 75, NC State 60. And this was Zeke Mayo and Hunter Dickinson game really for the offense, carrying the way, both of them with over 20 points. And, the more I think about it, the more I think it behooves Kansas if they treat Zeke Mayo as the top perimeter option on the offense. And what I mean by that is there's so often where DeJuan Harris is the one handling the ball for, in an incredible amount of time because he's kind of your lead point guard. And I think DeJuan has done a pretty good job overall this season. But I think there needs to be even more for Zeke Mayo. I think there's an opportunity there, and I think we saw a little bit in this game, a lot of the two-man action between Zeke Mayo and Hunter Dickinson, and I think that can be really lethal for KU. You have a player in Zeke Mayo who can pass, he can hit a floater, he can hit a three if you go underneath the screen, he can get it to Hunter Dickinson. Dickinson can obviously hit that short roll from the elbow or slip and hit a three-point shot, or he can roll. You can get it to, there's just a lot of different things that you can accomplish. You can hit him on the short roll, and then he hits somebody else in the corner for three. There's a lot you can accomplish with those two-man actions between Zeke Mayo and Hunter Dickinson. And you see Zeke Mayo going off in this game. He went off in the North Carolina game. It's been a little bit more inconsistent, and maybe that's just part of the jumping up at the level of competition he was going against and now the one he's going against here at Kansas. But, I can't help but think it best behooves Kansas if you look up at the shots, who took the most shots of the game at the end of the day? Hunter Dickinson and Zeke Mayo, those are the two you want to consistently go after. And in the same way with Hunter Dickinson, you're out there where it's against specific offenses, ball screen or teams that can spread you out, that's not going to be your forte defensively. So you want to take advantage as much as possible of Hunter Dickinson's strengths, his scoring, his rebounding, his outlet passing. And it's the same with Zeke Mayo. I wouldn't classify Zeke Mayo as a lockdown defender, And so the best way to take advantage of him being on the court is letting him be the best offensive option that he can possibly be. And especially right now with AJ Storr, with Rylan, Griffin continuing to find their footing, continuing to struggle, continuing to try to figure out, how to best fit in and how to play best within that confines of what Bill Self is asking them to. While that's kind of being figured out, yes, you want to still give time and patience to those things happening, but you've kind of got to let it happen organically. I don't know how much you can force it, you need to give those guys a good leash. You need to let them play and everything. But I don't know that you should go into every game being let's make AJ Storr the number one option. At this point in time, let Zeke Mayo be that guy. And I think it best behooves Kansas when those two players have the ball in their hands a little bit more with Hunter and Zeke Mayo. Now, in regards to the full game as a whole, this was a solid bounce back performance by Kansas. You came out hot. You came out strong. You really wanted to see that, right? You start out the game 15-0 out of the gates, and that's what you wanted to see because it didn't just show that, okay, you figured some things out or whatever. It showed that you care, I guess. After the Missouri game, after losing like that and looking like that against a rival on the road after a game you had just lost, you were maybe a little bit, under the idea of why did it look like that, right? Why was there not more effort put into that. It felt like a lethargic first half, or it felt like a very unclean first half for KU. And you didn't get that sense in the early going of this one. You got the sense that it was going to be about bouncing back, that it did start to maybe, affect their pride a little bit, that they were going to respond in a real way. And that's important to have. You win by 15 at home. It was a game that, NC State at times might have, gotten it down to a 7 or 8 point lead, but it never really felt like they truly threatened in the game. And you held them to 37% from the floor, so that's really good. You shot 57% from the floor. That's really good. You led 38-26 scoring in points in the paint. Like, that's solid for KU. At the same point in time, as much as this was a solid bounce back win, I can't help but come away from this one and still being like, you know what? A lot of the issues that we've kind of talked about and have kind of hurt this team when they have come up, I don't know that they just went away overnight. Like, a lot of them are still there. Okay, what's one of the big issues for KU? They haven't been a good offensive rebounding team. Like, you look at this year and last year, they've been two of the worst, if not the worst, in Bill Self's entire tenure at KU, if you're looking at like offensive rebounding rate. And NC State came into this team as a bad rebounding team. Like, especially on the defense glass, this was not a good defensive rebounding team. So this would have been an opportunity for you to have a good rebounding game if you were Kansas. And instead, NC State wound up with more rebounds than you did in this game. And you look at like offensive rebound rate for Kansas, it wound up, I guess it was still their second best of the season, a bit of a lower bar because of where they're at. But like, again, NC State wound up with, 11 offensive rebounds, Kansas at 8. So like that was something you thought you would come in and just completely dominate. KU has struggled getting into the free throw line. Well, that didn't change in this game. They only had 7 free throw attempts, like that didn't carry over. Kansas has struggled with giving the other team way more free throw attempts than they have had themselves. That was also the case in this game. Like, NC State had like double digit more free throw attempts than you. Despite the fact that you have some players that you would think, like DeJuan Harris, good at getting steals, you would think you would be overall as a team, good at forcing turnovers, good at forcing steals. And they've been better this season than they were last season, but still Kansas at this point in time is ranked 174th in the country in turnover rate defense. Like, that didn't really happen in this game. You forced just 8 turnovers. What about the 3-point defense? Maybe you give them a little bit of credit because NC State only took 15. Like, was that because Kansas did a good job not allowing them to get open looks? That's entirely possible. NC State also shot 40% from 3. So I don't know that I would walk away from being this bad. Yeah, that was great 3-point. What about the bench scoring? Something that, again, has been better this year than last year for Kansas, but NC State outscored your bench 18-5. And then, what about AJ Storr and Rylan Griffin starting to figure it out, starting to look like the guys that you might have expected coming into the offseason? Well, no, AJ Storr and Rylan Griffin combined had 4 points on 2 of 9 shooting. So I don't say all this to be like down in the dumps or to be like the sky is falling, even a 15-point win at home. That's not what I'm saying. Kansas is still a good team, and I think that's what you see in this game. You're a good team. You're playing at home. You're playing an overmatched opponent, and you were ready to bounce back. And those are all good things for Kansas. I point out all those things, though, to say that everything's not just fixed. And in fact, everything is probably about the same to where it was to me coming into this game. So, I come away encouraged that they did win, that they did bounce back, that they looked pretty good doing it. But I'm also not sure this team is any different. And honestly, they're going to have to kind of prove it on the road more than anything. And you're not going on the road for another 3 weeks at this point in time. So it makes it a little bit harder to have those definitive statements. Other notes in this one, Rylan Griffin ended up starting. Maybe he had some good practices. Didn't really carry over to the game, but that would be a good sign if he's stringing together good practices. KJ Adams had 6 rebounds. That was good to see. You'd love to see that every game. And then how about this? Shaquille Moore ended up playing in the game. There were certainly some interesting rumors and stuff kind of going around. So that was good to see him into the game in the first half, but really played limited minutes. Maybe that's something they can just kind of ramp him up. I do believe he came in before Diggy Coit, which I found very interesting. But he's somebody who, like I said, if you can get him into the rotation as a 10 to 15 minute per game guy, having a really good athlete who can get his own shot for a little bit of time and be a good defender out there, that is a nice 10 to 15 minutes you could throw out from the guard position. And so I think it would really behoove Kansas if they can get Shaquille Moore working and into the rotation. All right, let's get on to our game trophies. What's next? And a little KU women's basketball update after they're off to a strong start this season. This episode is brought to you by Game Time, which is a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They have their all-in pricing where you can toggle that feature and shows you the total up front, no surprise fees at checkout. You don't have to worry about it. With the lowest price guarantee, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if not. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Jayhawks, making your first listen every day. You can check out Locked On College Basketball for your second listen. Okay, our game trophies. Best moment of the game. I think just in general, the 15-0 run to get you started for this one. And you know, you hit that second Zeke Mayo 3 of the 15-0 run, and that extended it to 15-0. That was a really cool moment overall for KU. I also thought Zeke Mayo's and 1 toward the end of the first half was a pretty important moment because at that point, NC State had crept back to within 7. You know, it easily could have been, maybe even a 5-point game or something at the halftime break. But that and 1 by Zeke pushed you back up 10. Obviously, it would have been really cool if you would have hit that shot at the end there. I think it was from AJ Storr at the end of the half. But that was an important moment for KU to keep their lead at a sizable distance at the end of the first half from Zeke Mayo. So I thought both of those would apply for best moment. As far as worst moment, I don't know. This is like more so for the overall game. Was it me or was the camera like more zoomed out in this game than normal? It was like a very small thing to notice, but I don't know. It felt like everything was a little bit smaller. I didn't love that. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking things. Another Hunter Dickinson questionable. Is it flagrant? Is it dirty? Is it not foul? Worst moment that we have to now talk about that and that it had happened again. And again, you might this whole time with all these be like, no, it's clean. Like everything happens. But it's impossible if you're a ref to not go into this and be like, okay, but we know what the history is here. I don't know. It's just, it's not fun. It's not fun. And then I think there were like 3 loose balls that I noticed that were not just like, oh, the ball got stripped or something, but like the ball is like free and available. And there's multiple guys on both ends, like running for it, colliding with each other, diving, trying to get there. And KU didn't get any of them. Like, they were slow to all of them. Like, NC State was the first on the floor of, like, all of them. Like, I think only one of them, like, Kansas dove themselves, but it was, like, after NC State dove. I don't love seeing that because, you know, that's something that Bill Self really emphasizes. And going back to the idea of, like, okay, what is the grit? What is the want to? What is the mentality of this team? You know, again, even though it was a nice bounce-back win, you would like to see stuff like that changing as far as the process more than the results. Okay, we're going to give out an award for pass of the game of this one. I'm going to give an honorable mention. Hunter Dickinson caught a short roll and then bullet passed right after the short roll to DeJuan Harris kind of at the wing. He hits a 3. That put KU up 44-32 early in the second half. That was good. But the official pass of the game, it also goes to Hunter Dickinson. It was, so you go on a 15-0 run to start the game, but before the 15-0 run, it was a 10-0 run before it got even bigger. And it's 7-0, and Zeke Mayo passes it inside to Hunter Dickinson. And Hunter Dickinson immediately has the wherewithal. It's just like a touch pass. It wasn't, it was like, I don't know, patty cake. It was volleyball. He just immediately like tossed it back to him, like out of the air. And then Zeke Mayo hits a 3, and that makes it 10-0 at the time. That was really cool for the pass of the game. I'm going to foul you and you're going to like it award. That goes to Flory Badunga. The dude had 4 fouls in 7 minutes. That is absolutely diabolical from Flory Badunga. So far this season, he is now averaging 12 minutes per game. He's averaging 2 fouls per game in 12 minutes per game. So, I mean, if he was the per 40 is going to be off the charts, basically. That's going to be something where when we go into next year and like if Flory Badunga is back and you expect him to be the starting center, that's going to be the big question coming in this season. Like the defense is there. You see him pinning that block on the backboard. Like the defense is there. The motor is there. The rebounding is there. The dunking is there. Can he stay in the game and avoid fouls? The good news is that's usually something that freshmen struggle more at, especially freshman bigs, and they typically do get better as time goes on. Offensive MVP. So I thought long and hard between this one because this is a good debate. Zeke Mayo or Hunter Dickinson. It's pretty obvious it's one of the two. And you know what? I was going to pick Zeke Mayo at first. He led the team in scoring. He was super efficient doing it. 26 points, 9 of 14 shooting, 5 of 9 from 3, 5 of 7. 3 of 5 at the free throw line. He had 5 of 7 of KU's free throw attempts. So he had 5 free throw attempts. The rest of the team had 2. He also had 2 assists in the game. But I couldn't ignore what Hunter Dickinson did on the offensive end of the court, man. 21 points, 7 assists, 0 turnovers. I mean, how many of Zeke Mayo's made shots were because Hunter Dickinson sucked in the defense and then found him on an open shot? He also had 14 rebounds. Obviously, if this is offensive MVP, the ones that would only matter were the offensive rebounds. He did have 2 of those. So I ended up honorable mention to Zeke and gave the award to Hunter Dickinson, right? It's 5 less points, but it is 7 assists to 0 turnovers as opposed to 2 assists to 2 turnovers. Either guy was certainly worthy of that. And I mean, 47 combined points in a game that NC State scores 60 is very impressive from 2 guys. I really liked what we saw in some of that 2-man offense between the 2 of them. I also felt like in this game, Hunter Dickinson got more short roll opportunities, which has typically been more of what we've seen from KJ Adams. And I feel like they countered, like, it seems like in some of the recent games when KU does the short rolls with KJ Adams, they're just like, okay, well then what are you going to do about it? We're just going to sag off you, shoot it, whatever. In this game, it felt like KU did more short rolls with Hunter Dickinson, and because of his really good passing, he was able to find guys on the outside. And I don't know if that was an adjustment or something that, maybe it was just specific to this matchup, but I really liked what we saw from all that stuff. The quietest 15-point game night goes to DeJuan Harris. I know he hit a couple threes, which maybe makes it a little bit more loud, but honestly, when I was looking at the box score after the game, I was like, wait, DeJuan scored 15? Like, again, it's noticeable when you hit a couple threes and you're like, okay, DeJuan's doing pretty well. Like, he probably has 8. I just was surprised when I looked up there and I was like, oh, he scored 15 points. Wow, good for him. So 6 for 11, 3 of 6 from 3. I felt like that just kind of popped up to me. Defensive MVP for this one, I'm going to go with KJ Adams. He had 3 blocks for the game, which, I mean, that's always a great number if you can put up that. His primary defense was on Dontrell Styles, and Styles hit a couple threes, but Styles was only 3 for 10 from the floor. He had 8 points, came into the game shooting almost 50% from the floor. So he held him below his season average for percentage and points per game. And then there was even a time or two where like Middlebrooks got switched onto KJ and that KJ made the stop on a shot. I know there was definitely one earlier in the game. So I thought KJ had a good defensive game and he comes up with those blocks. So he gets defensive MVP. The chair of the game goes to the rolling chair that came out on the court after KJ had that hustle play. Congrats to the chair of the game, the most prestigious award you could get. All right, we're going to finish up what's next for KU men's basketball and a little KU women's basketball update. This is Locked on Jayhawks. Our episode of the show today is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. All you got to do, visit FanDuel.com. You can join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL and the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, finishing things up here. What's next for KU men's basketball? They're going to be taking on Brown. That'll be a game coming on Sunday of next week. They got finals week coming up. So they'll practice a little bit, but obviously they'll have to deal with that too. And then they'll take on Brown on Sunday, which those games are always tough. You play an Ivy League opponent. Brown was in the Ivy League championship a season ago. That you're playing them right before winter break. Guys might be looking ahead to Christmas. We've seen those games be closer than you might expect. So maybe you expect it to be close this go around. And then we'll have the Big 12 home opener after that on December 31st. Okay, a little KU women's basketball update too. So KU women's basketball is up to a 9-1 start so far this season. Samaya Nichols has been absolutely killing it so far. She's shooting 61% at the rim. She's shooting over 40% on three-point shots so far this season. She's averaging 20 points per game. I mean, she has been an absolute monster to this point in time. But what's been really cool to see so far for KU. It's not just Samaya Nichols, taking that next step. She was already so good as a freshman, and she's been even better so far as a sophomore. But it's also Reagan Williams, the 6'3" forward freshman from Park Hill South High School in Kansas City. She has been fantastic as a true freshman, right? I mean, didn't come in with the same. I mean, obviously was thought of as a well-recruited player, but not McDonald's All-American level like you were thinking Samaya Nichols, but she's been awesome as a freshman, and those two have been key. Kansas has started 9-1 on the season. They play tomorrow, or I guess if you're listening to this today, on Sunday against Penn State. It'll be a good test. It is a top 50 opponent if you look at Bart Torvik. KU does have a top 50 win over Auburn, but it should be a good game. And then they start Big 12 play the following Saturday against Baylor. So they actually start a little bit early than the men's. But a good start for the women's, looking to punch off or cap off, I guess I'm trying to say, the non-conference schedule with that win over Penn State if they can get it done, and then big-time conference play because we always know the Big 12 pretty loaded on the women's basketball side as well. That'll do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page. We'll see you next time with LOJ.